I'm Sergeant Major Shiffer. My first name R-O-C-K, last name S-H-I-F-F-E-R. I'm with the headquarters of 5th Corps, normally out of Heidelberg, Germany, and deployed over here as a member of Multinational Corps Iraq, and then further attached to IAG and now down to the National Police Transition Team. Well, we got here in January, and right away I tried to get involved in police things, since this being the year of the police and my background's in law enforcement. So I'd say around February time frame we started looking at different roles that we can get involved in Iraq to help out with the law enforcement situation. Okay, well, I'll start off with when the U.S. started training the Iraqi military here. They started off with military transition teams, and quite rapidly they discovered they also needed to do the same thing with their police. So the police started off with the Special Police Transition Teams, and the name was later changed to the National Police Transition Teams. And our teams are normally 11 to 15 man teams that work from the battalion, brigade, and division, and my instance in the National Police Headquarters. We coach, teach, mentor, advise the different organizations on how to develop their police forces. Well, there's quite a bit of difference, really. First off, it's a new organization, and it's just gotten stood up and about a year and a half old. We're still building their capability to be able to do what they need to do. And their job, 95% of the National Police are basically in the Baghdad area. About 5% are in some other areas. Right now, their main job is the coin fight, the counterinsurgency fight. They are manning checkpoints, they are doing patrols, they are trying to provide security for Baghdad, and they're taking a big, large part of the fight and doing a good job. There's a lot of their soldiers are losing their lives defending their city and defending their nation, and they can be very proud of what they're doing. They've got a long ways to go. We're training them, equipping them, advising them, and hopefully we'll get them more in a police type role down the road. But right now they're in the middle of a fight, and so they've got to deal with the counterinsurgency, the sectarian violence, basic criminal activities, kidnappings and that sort of thing. So they've got a lot to deal with. Well, I'm not an expert on everybody that came into the National Police, but I can say what I think is that there were a lot of different organizations of people that were trying to help defend Baghdad and the various neighborhoods and whatnot, and they developed loose organizations to provide security, and many of them are former police or former military, and the government at the time started adopting them in as a force to deal with, to help quell some of the violence and bring some security to the city. And so they started off with just a hodgepodge of people and a loose organization. So we have that organization, and that's what we're dealing with, the leaders and the soldiers, and we're trying to develop them into a capable force. Well, we'd all like it to happen quick. We want them to take over as much as they can, as quickly as they can, but we have a certain level of proficiency that we expect them to be at so that they can be capable and they don't need our help anymore. And once they reach those levels, then they can take over, and we can stand back and let them operate the way that they need to. But like I said, they're a new organization, about a year and a half old, and starting off with just a few people, and now up to about 20,000 people. And they need a lot of training, support in logistics, and we're getting their uniforms, we're building them barracks, we're developing their infrastructure here in their headquarters. We're developing their capability in operations centers. They're using cell phones basically for a lot of their communications, and so there's a lot to do here, and to expect a top-notch law enforcement agency in a short period of time is just not going to happen. It's going to take some time to develop. But I think more and more they're going to take over, and they are doing a large part of the fighting in Baghdad. More and more they'll be able to operate independently, and so it's encouraging. I'd say the largest one right now is there's really no logistical system for them to plug into. I mean, you start an organization with people and you have nothing to resource them with. And the government is all new as well, and many of them are not accustomed to pushing out logistics and payrolls and all of the things that support a large organization, a police organization, whether it's their weapons, their uniforms, fuel so that they can get around the city and do their jobs, life support on the checkpoints, you know, how do you feed them, how do you bring them water, all those things. They're working through all of that, but it's all new to a lot of them. Military, we have these kinds of structures built in, and they're called support companies and support battalions, etc. But they don't really have such a thing in law enforcement. In fact, most police departments, you know, the police officers, they eat in the local community, you know, they buy their own meals, or they bring a sack lunch or something. Well, this is like a hybrid organization, sort of a cross between a state police and a National Guard mobilized. And they're not to that level of each of those organizations, but they're in the beginning stages of that while they're doing a coin fight, a counterinsurgency fight. So there's a lot of things, and logistics is huge. How do you support this organization? Who do you go to for this or that? And that's the biggest challenge right now. There's no challenge in getting people. There's volunteers that want to join this organization. And they're patriots of their country, and they want to defend their nation. They want to earn an income and support their families just like we would in the United States. Well, we try not to do things for them. We rather show them how to do things and advise them and assist them. You know, it's just like any organization. If you do it for somebody, they're going to expect you to do it for them all the time. There's some of that goes on, some of the things we have to do for them when there's a shortfall or something breaks down. We can't let them fail completely. But sometimes they are stretched to the limits of their ability, and you know, we advise them on how to, you know, increase that ability a little bit more, and then sometimes we have to assist them. But for the most part, it's training them how to do it themselves. And that's what we want, is them to be able to do it themselves so we can eventually leave and they can support themselves. Well, law enforcement agencies have to know about law. They have to know the laws of the land. Well, with the new government, many of the laws are old laws or they're pre-existing laws, and many of these people don't know, you know, about the laws, or much less how to enforce them. So a lot of that training is important, and that's in the future in creating this force, having them very proficient at the law and knowing when to apply the law in various different situations. That's going to make the difference in this being a true law enforcement organization. And like I said, right now they are doing urban infantry and coin operations. Eventually, we'd hoped they could do all types of law enforcement type operations throughout the country, where they have proper arrest procedures, detention procedures, prosecution procedures, and all of that is still being worked out. I mean, they're doing the best they can. Some of the processes are slower than what we would expect. You know, due process should be a fairly swift thing. But things take time here, and everybody's learning. I'd say not. Many of them are brought together in the States. They're given several months worth of training to prepare them to come over here and assist the Iraqi people, so they're getting some cultural training. If they're going to be on a law enforcement type team, like a National Police Transition Team, I'd assume they're getting some law enforcement training. I didn't go through any of that. Our team was pulled out of Hyde. Fortunately, I have some law enforcement training. But I think they're getting the training that will allow them to come and assist these guys, the Iraqi National Police, in providing security first for their city. So security is the biggest challenge, and so the training is, you know, weapons, vehicles, communication, communication with the Iraqis, the cultural piece. They're getting all that kind of a training, and some of those people that I've interacted with so far seem to be well in advance of me when I stepped in this job. They at least they know some of the phrases and whatnot, and it's taken me some time to learn some of that. So they're getting some good training, and they're coming over here better prepared. I think it's incredibly important. In the military, you know, normally we go and we conduct military operations, and we do raids and ambushes and all the other things that the military does. But to come in and learn the culture, talk with the people, and learn what's important to them, and you've got to do that piece. You've got to be able to get to know them, because their culture is, come on in, have a seat, let's sit and talk, let's have some tea. And then after a little bit of the getting to know one another and whatnot, then you can start getting down to some business. And if you try and rush through that, you're going to offend them. And so we don't want to do that. We want to know how their culture is. And it's very interesting. It's rewarding to see the close-knit culture that they have. They're very friendly with one another, and their greetings are very friendly. And so I enjoy that. I enjoy learning about that. Well, you know, I came here wanting to make a difference. And for me, this is a great place to be able to come and make a difference. And I'm seeing a difference being made every day. Just the other day when these guys were getting their new uniforms, I was taking all of their pictures and asking them, what do you think of their new uniforms? And they love them. Oh, they're great. We look like the Americans. And they like what we have. They like our weapons. They like a lot of the things that we do. And so that's nice to get to know that. So anybody who's coming over here and wants to make a difference and get to know a culture and interact with people, this is great. The development of the leaders here and their ability to support their organization and lead their people, that's interesting to watch and help develop too. And I've seen that. I've seen the leaders who start off with not knowing a whole lot about our form of leadership or a different form of leadership, step into those roles and start leading their people and supplying their people and supporting their people. And but it's going to take some time. You know, we've got a heavy task here, and we can't be rushed. We've got to do it right and get them off onto a good footing.